So back in a previous life, I used to run bars and hotels and things like that. One of the biggest skills that I learned from that was being able to transfer myself from the bartender side of the bar to the customer side of the bar. And it was something that became so important when I was running a bar, particularly when I was down in London. We used to take a walk outside just as it was getting towards night time on a Friday or Saturday night when we knew it was going to get busy. We'd walk around the corner. Back then I used to smoke cigarettes, now I'm Captain Clean, but back then we used to go and have ourselves a cigarette, chill out for a little bit, have a bit of a 5-minute conversation and clear our minds of everything that we'd just done. Then what we used to do was take a big deep breath, close our eyes, and then open them and open all of our senses while we were doing it, and then start walking back towards the bar. From the second we saw the bar come into focus, that is where everything got assessed, right from the word go. So the first thing that we'd look at, obviously, are the things that caught our attention from a visual point of view. We'd look at the lighting, we'd look at how the bar is being represented from the street, because obviously we wanted to make sure that it looked warm and welcome and inviting. Then we activated all of our other senses to get that sense of how a customer would feel as they walked into the bar. So the first thing that we needed to be very aware of was making sure that we weren't an intimidating atmosphere, not as we got into the building, but actually from the very beginning. So we needed to make sure that our doormen, who were generally big burly guys, they had to know how to handle themselves, but they needed to make sure that they had a smile on their face and they were welcoming people in and not intimidating any of our clients, because if that was going to happen, then instantly you've got them on edge, and that's not going to set the story off on a very good start. From there, we needed to make sure that we felt warm. Obviously, being in London, it was a bit chilly for the majority of the time, so we needed to make sure that they felt that warmth as they came into the bar. And then from there, it was about lighting, it was about smell, it was about the feel under the feet. Because as I'm sure you guys could perhaps understand, if you're going into a bar and the first thing you feel is sticky feet on the floor, generally not a very good first impression. And then we had a good scan around the crowd. So essentially it was very strange, because the visual aspect essentially became the last thing that we thought about with all of our senses as we walked into the bar, because we needed to make sure that it smelled good, that you felt that sense of that hug that gave you, that the bar gave you, and made you feel like you wanted to be there. And then once we did a scan around the bar, it was the very technical things. So making sure that utensils were on all the tables, that rubbish wasn't lying around, that the people felt that they had a direct path towards the bar, so that they felt that they actually knew where they were going without knowing where they were actually heading. So then there was a few things that we needed to pay attention to when it came to customer interaction. We had a couple of different rules. We had this thing called the 10-second rule, where we had to make sure that every single customer that entered our bar was acknowledged by one of the gang. Didn't matter whether it was me, the pot wash, the waitress, the bartender, made no difference whatsoever. Someone had to acknowledge every single customer within 10 seconds of them arriving into the building. Why is that important? They're wanting that bit of interaction so that people know that they have arrived. And a very recent example of this was when I walked into a real estate firm of an inner city real estate agency, very popular agency. I was made to feel like I was a ghost. And it was really weird and made me feel quite cold. And that's me being a real estate person who was just there I was there to drop stuff off, say hello, and then leave. And that was all I was there to do. But not one person acknowledged me, up to the point where I got to the front desk and I had to then ask someone to look up and say hi to me. Now, as a customer, that would not have made me feel very welcome in any way, shape or form. And from their point of view as an agency, it doesn't matter how high up they feel they are. When we were in London working in the bar, we knew we were a high street bar and we knew we were sort of higher end to a degree, but to us that didn't matter, because every human needed to be acknowledged right from the word go. Because the longer that they are not acknowledged, the more their anxiety is building up and the more you're being judged, essentially. And that's how we saw it. So irrespective of whether we were so busy or super quiet, every single person had to be acknowledged within 10 seconds of entering the building, because then that made them feel like they could drop their guard down and enjoy their night. A really cool skill to get involved with is making sure you can ask questions while you're in motion. So ask in motion. We used to do this all the time behind the bar, because while we're pouring pints and making cocktails and doing all the lovely drinks that I'm sure a lot of you guys love, we needed to make sure that we were always interacting with our people as well, because if we didn't do that, it'd be a pretty boring place to be. I'm sure you will have all felt it yourself, where you sat at a bar, you've placed your order, and then you just sat there like lemons waiting for your drinks to come through. It kind of makes you feel awkward. Now, from a real estate perspective, this can be really, really cool, because while you are doing something, if you ask one or two very, very light pre-qualifiers, it will give you a real good opportunity in a very short space of time to learn a little bit more about your client.